the God Emperor of mankind, the sovereign ruler of the Imperium of Man. His origins are shrouded in mystery, though there are two separate accounts of his origins. One account finds that in the time of ancient man, powerful psychers on Earth were in peril. They noticed that with the growing darkness of the warp and the chaos gods therein, that their souls and the souls of all of humanity were in trouble. As a soul enters the warp, it would be devoured or corrupted by the demons that dwell there. As a result of this, the psychers had banded together and destroyed themselves in a ritual. As their mass of souls swelled and broke into the immaterium, they formed together and created the Emperor, who was then born a year later on Earth. The second account states that he was a young boy born in Anatolia in the 8th millennia BC. The Emperor was in fact a perpetual, an immortal being, one of many, though the Emperor was the most powerful of them all. He met another perpetual named Erda, who became a devout follower of the Emperor. Soon the Emperor became a great king, and had armies at his disposal. At this time, he met another perpetual, Olanius Person. Together these perpetuals would consolidate the Emperor's power, in preparation for the harsh future ahead of him. Over the expanse of human history, the Emperor took a back seat to the people of Earth. He lurked in the shadows, appearing and disappearing during times of great peril and important moments. He guided those around him with single purpose, to elevate mankind to their pinnacle. He even took on the mantle of Alexander the Great during human history. Much later, during the Dark Age of technology, an Olivius Soreka had travelled with the Emperor to a planet named Molech. It was here he found a gateway into the warp. He stepped into the gateway and made a deal with the dark gods that dwelled there. Thus, he emerged with an even greater degree of power, though the Emperor had not fulfilled his end of the bargain, and the ruinous powers began to refer to him as anathema. At some point in Earth's history, the Emperor found an ancient webway device which would allow travel independent from the warp. It was the first step in his plan, a plan that would allow all of humanity to be unfettered by the powers of chaos, which would make humanity a truly rare and powerful race. During the Age of Strife, many warlords were vying for supremacy over Terra, and so the Emperor stepped forward and began his great conquest of the planet. At this time he met a man named Malcador, who convinced this great warlord to take the title of Emperor. With Malcador at his side, the Emperor began looking for rare individuals with superior genetics so that he could create his new race of soldiers, the Thunder Warriors. He soon met Amar Astarte, who, with the help of the Emperor and Erda, would work on an entirely new project. He also met Ezekiel Sedane, who would later develop the Black Carapace for the successors of the Thunder Warriors, the Legio Astartes. And so, with these gifted individuals by his side, he began the Unification Wars. Taking his newly developed Thunder Warriors and genetically altered Geno 5-2 Chiliad soldiers, he conquered the planet and became the Emperor of mankind. Not long after this great victory, the Emperor began his plans to dominate the entire galaxy and set in motion his new Great Crusade. First, he created the Astrotelepath Corps to link his dominion together. Then he created the Astronomicon, a powerful signal device powered by the Emperor's own psychic might, which would allow safer travel through the warp. He then continued his new project, the Primarch Project. This project would have the Emperor create 20 infants, all from his own genetic code. Each of them would be a great general within his empire. Two separate accounts state what would happen at the end of this plan. The first one being Erda, the Emperor's longtime friend, would become disillusioned with the plan. Believing it to be a failure, she cast the infants into the warp so they could never be found. The second account states that the forces of chaos had intervened in the Emperor's plan. Either way, the end results of these accounts were exactly the same. The Primarchs were sent into the warp. In the aftermath of this event, the Emperor took genetic material derived from the Primarchs and created an entirely new caste of warriors, the Legions Astartes, the Space Marines of the first founding. He purged the warriors of old and replaced them with this new breed of soldier, and then took them with him to conquer the Sol system. As the Emperor pushed further out into the galaxy with his new armies, he discovered his lost sons one by one and placed them in charge of their respective Space Marine chapters. 200 years into the Crusade, the Emperor left the plan with his sons and returned to Terra, where he would continue his Webway project. and so he created a system of government so that he could work on his plans in peace and allow his children to carry on his crusade. Towards the end of the Great Crusade, Horus, a Primarch, was corrupted by chaos. It took half the Space Marine chapters with him. This started a great civil war known as the Horus Heresy. It was the greatest war that humanity had ever waged. Billions had perished in the onslaught that would unfold. Another Primarch, Magnus, had attempted to warn the Emperor of what was happening. He breached the Imperial Palace using his own warp powers, and unknowingly caused a malfunction in the Emperor's throne. Magnus was cast out by the Emperor, and for the next few years of the Civil War, the Emperor was trapped on the throne, using his mental powers to hold back warp breaches that had appeared within the palace. As demons flooded through these breaches, the custodian guards and the Sisters of Silence were forced to keep them at bay. After 5 years of expending his mental energies keeping chaos at bay, the Emperor began to feel fatigue from it all. He would frequently have nosebleeds and become beleaguered with exhaustion. At this time, a powerful demon named Dracnian had breached the webway, which forced the Emperor to leave the throne for a single day. Within the webway he battled this demon, eventually defeating it. The demon believed it had won by impaling the Emperor, though the Emperor tore the demon from himself and impaled one of his trusted soldiers, Ra Endymion, infecting him with the demon's filth. Ra then fled into the webway to safeguard humanity from this creature. Thus the webway project had failed, and the Emperor sat upon his throne and lamented. For the first time in history, he had no idea what to do next. Soon after, Horus had entered the Sol system, and brought with him a great tide of chaos energy. The Emperor was forced to hold back this power with his own. During this time, the Emperor took the form of a withered old man, as his energies were being pushed to the limit. As the Siege of Terror took place, the Emperor allowed his son, Magnus, to enter the barrier. Here he showed his son a potential future, one of which humanity won. Their kind were living in perfect harmony, with Magnus upon the throne, his very soul in a state of perpetual bliss. The only caveat to this future, though, was that Magnus's Space Marine chapter would have to be destroyed, and with it all the traitorous legions. Magnus believed this to be a price not worth paying, and lashed out at the Emperor. Another Primarch, Vulcan, battled with Magnus, eventually pushing him out of the throne room and away from the Emperor. Towards the end of the siege, Horus dropped the shields to his great vessel, which allowed the Emperor to board it with his loyal soldiers. During the assault, Horus had used his new dark powers to infect some of the Emperor's most loyal, forcing the Emperor to destroy them himself. The Emperor realized how powerful his son was, and so he absorbed more warp power than ever before, turning himself into an entirely new Chaos God. Using these new powers, the Emperor swept through the Materium and the Immaterium, destroying all within his sight. Any demons who were lucky enough not to be defeated all fled in panic at the mere sight of the Emperor's new form. At this time, several of the Emperor's most loyal confronted him, believing this new power to be his downfall. They eventually convinced the Emperor to stop using the dark powers. The Emperor knew they were correct, though, without these powers, he believed his battle with Horus would result in failure. Yet, the Emperor dropped his dark visage and continued on as himself. The battle with Horus was fierce. The Emperor witnessed the broken body of one of his most favoured sons, and still he fought with a passion the likes of which had never been seen. Eventually he won, though the price was steep. The Emperor was found later in a state close to death by his son, Rogel Dawn. Rogel listened to the Emperor's words and altered the Golden Throne to be an arcane life support machine. Here the Emperor's broken and decaying body would be placed. His body now in perpetual pain and torment, his soul in the Immaterium fighting a never-ending battle with the ruinous powers. The Emperor was, and is, a symbol of humanity and its indomitable will. The Emperor has never stopped fighting for his people, and most likely never will. Perhaps one day he will be reborn anew, or perhaps he will languish upon his throne for the rest of eternity. None but the Emperor truly know his fate, and thus he remains as he is, stepping in to guide wherever he can, and pushing humanity as far as he can.